Hello everyone, I haven't made a tier list yet, but now that all the heroes are out, most of their paths are going to be finalized for now. There'll probably be new heroes and some small patches throughout the future. But for the most part, this should be the people. I'm not going to include the bounty hunter because I have not actually played him, and also he doesn't join you for the whole run. So these are going to be for heroes that can only join you for the whole run. I'm doing a forced distribution, much like the first game, which means there can only be one in S, 1 in F, 3 in A, 3 in B, 3 in C. This will cause controversy, and that's what it intends to do. Does not necessarily mean the person's unusable, does not mean they're not good in certain team comps. What I'm evaluating people on, I'm not going to do the same scale I did in the first game. With so many different hero paths, RNG, different endgame bosses, each hero has their strengths and weaknesses. It's really hard to give essentially a letter grade. But what we will be doing is obviously capability doing damage, healing, general team comp. Do you have to plan around them? Do you have to plan for them? Are they good at damage? Are they bad at damage? Are they super situational? Are they good in any area? It's going to be more of the generic feel for Darkest Dungeon 2 here because of all the different aspects that could go into a hero. So let's just get this started with no more talking. Plague Doctor is S tier. Plague Doctor has heals for days, has blind, has incision, has blight, can get rid of AoE dodges, AoE burn. It's just the Plague Doctor, you never have to think about her. With a limited amount of good back row heroes, in my opinion, the Plague Doctor is hard to avoid to not put at least in the third row. Her paths, I'm not going to get too much into them, but they are useful all the way around. She can be actually a pretty good melee hero, as well as the supporting cast with Alchemist. I've heard some people say. I haven't personally played it myself, but I could see why it's good. I don't think you can go wrong if you have a Plague Doctor in your party. And by the way, once we get to the multiple tiers, I do count left to right as a higher score, so I'm going to put the Flage next. With the introduction of the Flage, even without like some of the, hero pass, it's just the Blight's pretty good, the able to heal over time as well as just generic healing on himself. He's just very survivable. When he breaks down in his relationships, he obviously gains more stuff as well. Just a very tough piece of meat to chew on through the enemy. There's another Blight option, pairs very well with the Plague Doctor in terms of cause of death. Obviously, the Flage can also consume all Blight, so they pair very well together. Lots of healing, lots of good damage. It's really, using Suffer can just take away 3 stress when at 0 limitations, so that's really nice. Dumping stress onto the Flage is actually not bad either. So I think the Flage is very durable. The damage is decent. And in a game where going to Death's Door really isn't a huge issue, if you can get off of it, the Flage is very good. Man-at-Arms. There's really nothing to dislike about the Man-at-Arms besides maybe burst and back row damage. Obviously has a defending ability, which is very good for a few bosses. Has Bellow, which can get rid of crits, and Riposte, which is very good for the Exemplar, which you always have to fight. Obviously can stress heal himself and others. Is able to get 75% protection tokens rather easily. Has an ability where he can refreshing 75% protection tokens. Obviously has a Riposte. His one path makes his Crush and Riposte even better. Has a lot of HP. Can get a lot of HP healed on him because of that. Overall, with the mechanics of healing HP and not just straight HP, well, HP percentage, not just HP, he can be healed up very quickly. He's very tanky, and he does a considerable amount of damage with Crush. He can even heal himself with a combo token, so he can actually take... He's very self-efficient. The only thing he lacks is healing, but any healing done to him is usually massive. So he's arguably really hard to not pick because of his capability to defend, be tanky, do damage, and almost always have HP. So I always find myself having him at least position 2 probably. Next we get the Dismas. As a pure damage dealer of true versatility, I think he's probably among one of the best, obviously. Because if you do Sharpshooter, you can hit back row, you can Grape Shot front row. If you just want to do Rogue, you can do, like a point and blank, and then you get a Riposte, then you Riposte. I forget what his last one is, but overall his skill paths are pretty good. He obviously still has Riposte. Wicked Slice is good. Highway Robbery is really good. Tracking Shot for certain bosses, really, he's got a lot of useful skills, and he does damage very well. It's very difficult sometimes to just put on point blank and just always gives yourself a combo token. I mean, it's just so good. like I say, he's just one of the better damage dealers in the game. Obviously, take aim, self crit, evasion, speed. It's all so good. It's hard not to justify the Highwayman not being at least on an A tier. Maybe next 3 you could maybe say your preference, you would put him down to B, but he definitely does not fall low. He definitely does not fall below B tier. I have the Vestal next, and my personal experience, I've not played the Vestal a lot, but I've seen a little bit of gameplay and I read a little bit about her skills and paths. She's actually pretty darn good, mostly because for consecrations and heals. Obviously giving people damage tokens, crit tokens, eventually building up the ability to do big heals where her abilities can obviously do more as you stack up her tokens. So she really is kind of like give out consecrations and then bam, big ability, give them out. So she can heal a lot. We're talking like 50%. That's huge in this game. Like we said, we just talked about the Man-at-Arms. You get him to 60, 66 HP and you drop a 50% heal bomb on him. It's 33 HP. That's a lot of HP in this game. And she can do that easily by round 3. Sorry, my dog. Yeah, so she's actually got a lot of good options to either dish out damage after a few rounds or dish out massive heals, which not everyone in this game can say. The Occultist can do decent heals, but like the first game, it's RNG related. She's less RNG related. She can sit in the 4th position, which there's, once again, not a lot of good ones of. So I really do think the Vestal is at least B. If you want to argue, you move her up to A, maybe replace the, I don't know, maybe the Fladge or Highwayman. I don't think she's better than the Man-at-Arms at all. I think the Man-at-Arms is far too versatile. But the Vestal is definitely a comfortable 4th position hero if you're okay with taking a few of those rounds to build up those tokens. Next, we have the Jester at B tier. The Jester's really good. He likes to dance. He can apply blind tokens, apply vulnerability, bleeds, make people go again so they can heal themselves. You can give out 2 heals. You can obviously speed up rounds on cooldown abilities. He is really a good support, but like I said, you can't underestimate. Harvest is actually pretty good, and then Slice Off for bosses to keep applying a vulnerability tokens actually really good as well. You get some nice bleed going there. Inspiring Tune is obviously -3 stress. It's one of the better stress heals in the game. So, you know, between that, I forget what it, Encore. Yeah, Encore is amazing because some heroes really do benefit from 2 turns. Like you could take aim with the Highwayman, Encore him, they could use the same turn, get up a riposte, have 1 crit token left over depending on how things are working out for you, but then have your riposte up. So he really does enable a team. His blinds with Fade to Black, I believe. The blind token's really good, and I think it adds a combo token. I can't remember exactly all of his upgraded skills, but I try not to pick the Jester a lot. I use him a lot. The only reason why he's not an A, he is a little fragile, and his damage can feel a little lackluster, but by no means, if I had a Jester end up in my party, I'd be like, oh, why is this Jester here? So I think he absolutely deserves into the average category, where it's slightly above. So we got the Hellion. The Hellion's very good, and I didn't know where to really place her because I think the Highwayman's better. But sometimes when you want that raw burst damage and back row damage, you almost prefer the Hellion. So the Highwayman and Hellion are kind of weird for me. I guess it's mostly boss specific. If I'm aiming to do a certain thing for a boss, or if I don't have a lot of back row damage necessarily, like with a Plague Doctor or a Runaway, I probably like a Hellion more. So I would argue a Hellion's a nice fill-in when I'm not sure about my back row. But if I know I got back row damage, I mean, Howling's End's really good, but I just think Point Blank and then Wicked Slice where we're posting is just too good. With a few adjustments to Ravager Hellion, I believe, and also Howling's End from when it first came out, it's still really good, but it's not as good as it used to be. I think Point Blank is still just a little better, more reliable. He's a little less shuffle prone as well, and he doesn't have to worry about exhaustion tokens. She does have some okay team abilities, and Adrenaline Rush is really good for maintaining herself that round and obviously future rounds. She also pairs very well with the Runaway, as she can bleed herself, and then the Runaway can heal her for non-HP limited stuff, which is really good. So I think the Hellion works really well with a Runaway, but as you can see, I haven't quite put the Runaway on here yet. But now I have. It's really weird. I put the Runaway lower. I think she used to be a little better in early access, but I can't remember some of the changes to her skills, but she was a little better. I still think she's pretty good in some of her paths. It's just with the people above, if I played the Vestal a little more, I think I would justify having the Runaway lower. Like I said, I have not as much experience with the Vestal, but I do think the Runaway can be a little fragile. I think her support skills can be somewhat limited. Like, for example, if Smokescreen doesn't get the tokens you want off, it's kind of a waste of a round. Firefly is just a generic back row damage. The Plague Doctor does better. Cauterize is a limited heal and needs bleed, unlike the Plague Doctor's Battlefield Medicine and some of the Flage's abilities. So once again, that's kind of where it goes, like, she's good, but you definitely need a certain party comp for her. And certain enemies and areas she obviously does not excel in. The Plague Doctor does not care if she can't really blight the whole time. Like I said, she's got Incision. The Runaway's kind of screwed if she can't light things on fire and if her utility tokens aren't working. So that's why she's lower. She's kind of area specific. She's party specific. She's still really good. I mean, I literally just beat the game with her, and I have her in a lot of my parties. It's just you do kind of have to watch out where you wander and what she has, because she's not exactly the most malleable to every party. And honestly, these last three are kind of crapshoots. I haven't played a lot with them, but there's people who do things better than them all above, and that's why they're down here. So Grave Robber. I beat the Shackles with the Grave Robber. I've beaten a couple of bosses with the Grave Robber. She can pair well with the combo tokens, obviously. She can sustain herself fairly well. My only beef is she really doesn't feel like a team player, and her damage feels like it can be comparable to the damage dealers above, who can be slightly more team player-ish, or at least have better utility skills. Like, for example, the Highwayman with Highway Robbery is just so good. Stealing any tokens is amazing. Tracking Shot, reducing evasion. Like, it's just, even the Highwayman has a lot of utility for the team. The Hellion can obviously decrease stress across the team, can make people attack. It's just, the Grave Robber feels like just a less good form of damage from the Grave Robber in terms of DOT, and maybe the same level as the Highwayman and Hellion. Now, there's probably certain hero trinkets and paths, and, you know, if you line it up with certain stuff, I'm sure she can pop damage off. I'm not saying you can't win with her. I'm just saying on initial face value, I feel like the damage dealers above are a little more obvious and set forward and don't need as much setup or potential trinket RNG as the Grave Robber needs. Alright, our big man Occultist. I think he would easily ascend the ranks to the top of C if Weird Reconstruction did not have an HP limit. Even if you get 2 unchecked powers on him and you get that 100% crit heal, it's still between 0 and 50% at the max level while you're trying to heal people at 33%. Well, they have to be below. So in the first game, my literal advice for the Occultist was heal often and heal early, because you could get those crit zeros. You could get those crit, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't want to wait until someone got down to 33% HP to heal them. And here's the thing, since this is percentages and not raw numbers like the first game, and I'm not trying to bash on Darkest Dungeon 2, I'm just saying things fundamentally change when you go from straight numbers to percentages. Because it's obviously amazing if you get a man at arms at, like, let's just say 80 HP and you can heal him for 50. That's 40 HP. That's bonkers. And if you crit on that, that's 80 HP. I mean, that is a health bar. That's amazing. And it can be guaranteed on the crit. But at the same time, if you got someone with like 24 HP and you have to wait till they fall down to 7 and you can only heal them for a max of 12, it's not very good, right? So I think the Occultist kind of got screwed by the HP limitations of percentages. His range skills in the back are okay. His curses are decent. I think he's pretty good at utility, but as I mentioned above, I think there's a couple of characters who do the same utility, or at least have so many other skills that will buff your party, which are guaranteed, rather than a % chance of the enemy resisting, and then kind of having your Occultist just sit there. Once again, he can do damage. He can be useful in a party. His weakening ability is really great for AoE bosses. Not going to disagree with that. I just think he's a little harder to fit into certain team comps, and his heal got even worse from the first game to this one, which is obviously a big draw. In the first game, he was a good secondary healer, as he would have been this game as well. And yes, this is soul crushing for me, but the Leper's last. The only path you can maybe argue is good is like Monarch as just a literal sponge for damage. He just keeps healing and comes in with a mediocre chop each time. Like, the Leper is definitely more tank oriented this game than damage. with him having the chance of getting so many blind tokens and having to depend on either pretty much like trinkets or milk-soaked bandages or someone like commanding him like the Man-at-Arms, I think his RNG spread on his chop is too much. Even if you add 33% to it, I just think based on almost guaranteed blind tokens, let me look up his upgraded blind and kind of explain why. The poor man, I love the Leper, but it's really hard to justify bringing the Leper out in my opinion. So yeah, it's 6 to 16 damage fully upgraded, and it's still a 60% chance to add a blind token every time you use it. 60%. It's not even a coin flip. It's not in your favor, which means you pretty much always have to be using a combo token to get 6 to 16 damage. We just talked about Point Blank, Howling's End, heck, even Crush with Vanguard, or not Bulwark, I believe. Even with Bulwark, it's too good. It's just adding vulnerability tokens to other people. And even if you could do, let's just say like 10 to 24 damage, that might be overkill for a few of those squishy enemies in front, which is all he's going to hit. So, and if he goes against protection tokens like the enemies in the first game with protection, it wasn't such an issue because, you know, you could obviously just keep hitting. But in this game, it's like, that might have been your one time you didn't have a blind token, now you're blinded again. So do you focus on healing the blind, or do you do that? He is a great tank. He's only at F because he has to be. Can he beat every boss in the game? Yes. Can you probably, you know, make him part of every composition? Yes. Like, he's not unusable. I just think he's not very friendly. You need to make sure you have a very good 3 other people to either assist, or you need to understand he needs to take all the attacks. He needs to be the tank, which is fine. It's a role that is needed in Darkest Dungeon 2. Now, whether that tank is, you know, it can heal theirself a lot like the Leper does, or it gets a lot of protection tokens, which, you know, can kind of happen on the Leper as well. I just think the Man-at-Arms is superior in every other way compared to the Leper. But the Leper can definitely be useful. Like I said, I think Monarch might be like one of those weird niche ones that are decent. But overall, I think in terms of damage, there's better damage dealers who are at least as good. In terms of heals and protection and people attacking them, I think the Man-at-Arms and Hellion are much better. It's just kind of hard to justify putting him in the front row since he doesn't really help too many other people. Let me know what you think the best are. I definitely think S through I think the Plague Doctor should be fairly hard to dispute. Maybe you could say move to A, move someone else up. I think the Flage is just too self-sustaining. The Man-at-Arms is just like the ultimate damage, able to be healed, get rid of bad tokens person. The Highwayman could maybe move lower for some of you. Maybe the Vestal moves up. Maybe the Grave Robber moves up. I don't know. Overall, I think it's a pretty accurate list. The 9 middle heroes are all very interchangeable. I think for the most part, having a Leper in your party makes you go, ugh. And I think having a Plague Doctor in your party makes you go, yeah. So I think those 2 are just absolutely really good. The other 9, you could maybe swap, like I said, 1 or 2 per tiered level. But I think for the most part, if you were to only be stuck with the top 7 heroes, I don't think you'd be too disappointed. Thank you for watching.